The stars were cold and silent in the Andromeda sector. On the planet Velnar Prime, a world of crystal towers and floating gardens, something terrible was happening. The Velnar people had lived in peace for thousands of years. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed softly in the dark. They could speak to each other with their minds. They had never hurt anyone. They had never needed to fight. Now they were dying. The Krathik's dominion had come 3 months ago. Their massive ships blocked out the sun. The Krathiks were like giant insects with black shells and too many legs. They took Velnar people from their homes. They put them in cages. They used them as slaves. The Velnar had no weapons. They had no army. All they had was hope, and even that was fading. Elder Talus stood in the Grand Archive, the most sacred place on Velnar Prime. Around him stood the last free leaders of his people. They were all glowing dimly, a sign of their fear and sadness. Talus was very old, his skin barely shining anymore. He looked at the faces around him and felt his hearts break. Both of them beating slowly in his chest. "We must send the signal," Talus said quietly. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "We must ask for help." "But who will answer?" asked another elder, her voice full of despair. "The Galactic Council abandoned us. They said we were too far away. They said it was not their problem." Talus walked to the center of the room where an ancient communication device stood. It was very old, built by their ancestors who had first reached for the stars. "Then we will send our message to everyone. To every world. To every species. Someone must have mercy. Someone must care." They activated the device. It hummed and glowed. The message went out into the darkness, traveling faster than light, touching every system, every station, every world that could listen. The message was simple. "We are dying. Our children are taken. If there is mercy in the stars, please hear us. We are the Velnar of Velnar Prime. Please help us." The message traveled for days. Most species ignored it. Some felt sad but did nothing. The galaxy was big and cruel, and everyone had their own problems. But the message kept going, further and further until it reached a small, blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, Earth. Dr. Gina Park was working the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Sol. She was drinking her 5th cup of coffee and thinking about her bed when the computer started screaming. Every screen lit up. Every speaker crackled. She ran to her station and started translating the signal. Her hand shook as she realized what she was reading. Within an hour, the message was on the desk of Fleet Admiral Doyen Kim. He sat in his office at the United Terran Coalition headquarters, reading the translation over and over. Doyen was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a combat pilot. He had seen many things in his life, but this message made him feel something he had not felt in years. It made him angry. He called an emergency meeting. The council chamber filled with officers, politicians, and advisors. They argued for hours. Some said Earth should stay out of it. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. They were still new, still learning. Why risk everything for strangers? Others said they had to help. That was what humans did. When someone cried for help, you answered. You didn't calculate the cost. You just went. Captain Minho Choi stood up. He was young for a captain, only 32, but he had already proven himself in 3 combat situations against pirates. He commanded the Prometheus Rising, the most advanced warship Earth had ever built. "I volunteer," he said simply. "Give me the order and we launch in 6 hours." The room went quiet. Everyone looked at Admiral Doyen. The old man stared at the message on his screen. He thought about his granddaughter, safe at home. He thought about the Velnar children in cages. He made his decision. "Approved," Doyen said. "Captain Choi, you will take the Prometheus Rising to Velnar Prime. You will render all possible assistance to the Velnar people. You will show them what humanity stands for." Minho saluted. "Yes, sir. We won't let them down." The Prometheus Rising was beautiful and terrible. It was 2 kilometers long, covered in armor plating and weapons. It had plasma railguns that could punch through mountains. It had quantum shields that could stop almost anything. Inside, it had 300 crew members, the best humanity could offer. Lieutenant Hana Shin ran tactical operations. She was small but fierce, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Junho Lee commanded the medical bay. He was gentle and kind, always ready with a joke to calm frightened patients. Engineer Suji Kang kept the massive engines running. She could fix anything and often worked 20-hour shifts without complaining. They gathered in the briefing room. Captain Minho stood before them, the Velnar message playing on the screen behind him. "I won't lie to you," he said. "This will be dangerous. The Krathik's dominion is powerful. They have more ships than us, more weapons, more experience. We might not come back." He paused and looked at each face. "But someone asked for help. Someone is dying while we stand here safe and comfortable. I'm going to answer that call. If you want to leave, do it now. No shame, no judgment, nobody moved. Not one person." Hana stood up. "We're with you, Captain. All the way." The others cheered. Minho felt pride swell in his chest. This was his crew. These were his people. 6 hours later, the Prometheus Rising launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. Millions watched on their screens as the great ship rose into the sky, its engines blazing like a newborn star. Children pointed and asked their parents if the ship would save the aliens. The parents didn't know what to say. On the bridge, Minho sat in his command chair. The stars stretched before him. Somewhere out there, people were suffering. Somewhere out there, children were crying. But they wouldn't cry alone anymore. Humanity had heard them. "Arya," Minho said to the ship's artificial intelligence. "Set course for Velnar Prime, maximum speed." "Course set, Captain," Arya responded, her voice calm and clear. "Estimated travel time, 3 weeks. Then let's not waste any time. All hands, this is the captain. We have a long journey ahead, but when we arrive, we show them what humans are made of. We show them that when someone cries for help, we answer. Engage." The Prometheus Rising jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead of them, destiny waited. The journey through space was long and hard. The Prometheus Rising traveled through wormholes, shortcuts through the fabric of reality itself. Each jump made the crew feel sick and dizzy. Each jump brought them closer to Velnar Prime. Captain Minho used the time to prepare his people for what was coming. Every day they ran combat simulations. The crew would rush to battle stations. Alarms would scream. Hana would coordinate weapons fire while Minho gave orders. They practiced fighting enemies they had never seen. They practiced saving people they had never met. Some days they won the simulations. Some days they died. Minho made them do it again and again until they could fight in their sleep. "Again," Minho would say after a failed simulation. "We do it again. Those people don't get a second chance. We need to be perfect." The crew never complained. They understood. Lives depended on them. Lieutenant Hana spent her free time studying everything she could find about the Velnar. She watched their broadcasts, their cultural recordings, their history files. She learned they were poets and philosophers. They wrote songs about starlight and built gardens that floated in the air. They had never fought a war. They didn't even have a word for murder in their language. One night she found Minho standing alone on the observation deck. He was staring at the stars, his face tired and worried. She stood beside him quietly. "They're so peaceful," Hana said softly. "The Velnar. They never hurt anyone. They just wanted to live and learn and grow." Minho nodded. "That's why we're going. The universe shouldn't punish people for being kind. Someone has to stand up for them." "Do you think we can win?" Hana asked. Minho was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but I know we have to try. That's what makes us human, Hana. We try even when it's impossible." Dr. Junho was busy preparing the medical bay for casualties. He stocked bandages, medicine, surgical equipment. He prepared beds for the wounded. He prepared beds for the dying. He didn't like to think about it, but he was a realist. People were going to get hurt. People were probably going to die. His job was to save as many as he could. His assistant, a young nurse named Minji, watched him work. "Do you think we'll have enough supplies?" she asked nervously. Junho smiled at her, trying to be comforting. "We'll have enough, and if we don't, we'll make do. We always do." But alone in his office, Junho allowed himself to be scared. He looked at the pictures of his family on his desk. His wife, his 2 daughters. He had volunteered for this mission, but now he wondered if he would ever see them again. Engineer Suji Kang lived in the engine room. The massive quantum drives hummed and roared around her like living things. She loved them. She understood them. While other people found the engine room too loud and too hot, Suji felt at home there. She constantly adjusted the power flows, optimized the fuel consumption, made the ship run better and faster. Her second engineer, a man named Hyun, brought her coffee. "You need to sleep, Chief," he said. "You've been awake for 18 hours, Suji waved him off. "Sleep later." Right now I need to make sure these engines don't fail when the captain needs them most. One mistake, one power failure, and people die. The engines are fine, Hyun insisted. Fine isn't good enough, Suji shot back. They need to be perfect. 2 weeks into the journey, they received a message. It came from Ambassador Tholis of the Zinthari Collective. The Zinthari were an old and powerful species. They had been exploring the galaxy when humans still lived in caves. Tholis appeared on the main screen, his many eyes blinking slowly. Human vessel Prometheus rising, Tholis said, his voice strange and clicking. I am Ambassador Tholis. I must warn you, turn back. The Krathix Dominion is beyond your capabilities. You are young and foolish. You will die and the Velnar will die anyway. This is not your war. Go home while you still can. The crew looked at Captain Minho. He stood and faced the screen, his jaw tight with anger. Ambassador Tholis, this is Captain Minho Choi. We received a distress call from the Velnar people. We are going to help them. That's not negotiable. You don't understand, Tholis said, his voice almost pitying. The Krathix have destroyed entire civilizations. They are ruthless. They are powerful. What can one human ship do against their fleet? Minho stepped closer to the screen. I don't know yet. But I know what happens if we do nothing. Good people die. Children stay in cages, evil wins. And I can't accept that. Humanity can't accept that. You are fools, Tholis said. Maybe, Minho replied. But we're fools who answer distress calls. We're fools who refuse to abandon people in need. If that makes us stupid in your eyes, so be it. But we will not turn back. The transmission ended. Tholis's face disappeared. The bridge was silent. Then Hana started clapping. The rest of the crew joined in. Minho felt embarrassed but also proud. His people believed in this mission. They believed in doing the right thing. 3 days later, they reached the edge of Velnar space. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light speed. The stars returned to normal, and there, waiting for them, were 6 Krathix warships. The enemy vessels were ugly and brutal. They looked like they had been grown instead of built, all organic curves and black chitinous armor. Weapons bristled from every surface. The largest ship was twice the size of the Prometheus Rising. Battle stations, Minho shouted. Alarms blared. The crew ran to their positions. Hana's fingers flew across her tactical console. Hunyo sealed the medical bay. Suji pushed the engines to maximum power. The Krathix ships moved toward them slowly, like predators circling prey. A transmission came through. The face that appeared was nightmarish, an insect head with too many eyes and mandibles that clicked and dripped. This was Overlord Vexus, commander of the Krathix patrol fleet. Human vessel, Vexus hissed. You are in Dominion space. You will surrender your ship and crew. You will be processed and assigned work details. Resistance will be met with pain. Minho looked at the creature with disgust. This is Captain Minho Choi of the United Terran Coalition. We are here to help the Velnar people. Stand down and leave this system immediately. Vexus made a sound that might have been laughter. It sounded like insects dying. You are alone. We are 6. You are weak. We are strong. You will surrender or be destroyed. Minho looked around his bridge. His crew looked back at him. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also ready. They trusted him. He wouldn't let them down. Aria, Minho said calmly. Charge all weapons. Prepare for combat. Weapons charging, Captain. Aria responded. Minho looked back at the screen at the monster waiting there. Overlord Vexus, I have a message for you and the entire Krathix Dominion. Humanity has arrived, and we don't surrender. He cut the transmission. The Krathix ships opened fire. The universe exploded into light and noise. The Krathix weapons fired streams of green energy that looked like living things. They twisted and writhed through space, seeking the Prometheus Rising like hungry serpents. The ship's shields flared bright blue as the first impacts hit. Shields at 90%, Hana shouted over the alarms. They're using neural disruptors, designed to disable, not destroy. They want to capture us, Minho said, gripping his command chair. They think we're prey. Let's show them what humans are. All weapons, return fire. The Prometheus Rising unleashed its plasma railguns. The weapons fired solid slugs of superheated matter at incredible speed. The first volley hit a Krathix ship dead center. Its organic shields rippled and held, but cracks appeared in the black armor. The second volley punched straight through. The Krathix ship exploded in a ball of green fire. Pieces of it tumbled through space, still burning. The crew of the Prometheus Rising cheered. First blood was theirs. But the celebration lasted only seconds. The other 5 Krathix ships swarmed forward, firing from every angle. The Prometheus Rising shook and bucked like a living thing. Lights flickered. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. A crew member screamed as hot metal cut across his arm. "Evasive maneuvers!" Mino commanded. "Don't let them surround us." Suji pushed the engines hard. The ship dove and twisted, moving in ways that seemed impossible for something so large. The crew was thrown against their harnesses. Some people vomited from the violent motion, but Suji's flying kept them alive. Weapons fire that should have hit them passed through empty space instead. Hana coordinated the return fire with deadly precision. Every time a Krathix ship exposed a weak point, she was there. Railgun slugs hammered into engine clusters and weapon ports. The Prometheus Rising fought like a cornered wolf, all teeth and fury. Overlord Vexus watched from his command ship in disbelief. How were these humans so good at fighting? His intelligence report said Earth was a young species, barely spaceworthy. They should have surrendered by now. Instead, they fought with a ferocity he had never seen. "They're like demons," one of his officers clicked nervously. "They don't fight like civilized species. They fight to kill." Vexus hissed in anger. "Then we will show them what the Dominion does to demons." All ships concentrated fire on their engines. "Cripple them." The Krathix ships changed tactics. They stopped trying to disable and started trying to destroy. All their weapons focused on the rear of the Prometheus Rising, where the massive engines glowed bright blue. The shields in that section couldn't hold against so much firepower. They collapsed. "Shield failure in engineering," a voice shouted. "Hull breach on decks 9 and 10. Suji felt the explosions through her feet. The engine room filled with smoke and sparks. One of her engineers was dead, crushed by falling debris. Another was on fire, screaming. Hyun grabbed an extinguisher and put out the flames while Suji worked frantically at her console. "I'm losing power," Suji reported over the communications. Her voice was strained but steady. "Port engine is offline. Starboard engine at 60%. I need time to repair." "Time is something we don't have," Minho said. He looked at his tactical display. The Krathix ships were moving in for the kill. His crew was injured. His ship was damaged. They were going to lose. Then he had an idea. It was crazy. It was probably suicide. But it might work. "All hands brace for impact," Minho said calmly. "Suji, give me everything the remaining engine has. Every last bit of power." "Captain?" Suji asked, confused. "Trust me," Minho said. "Hana, transfer all shield power to the front of the ship. Make it like a battering ram." Hana understood immediately. Her eyes went wide. "Captain, that's insane." "I know," Minho smiled grimly. "Do it anyway." The Prometheus Rising turned directly toward the largest Krathix ship, Vexus's flagship. The human vessel accelerated, moving faster and faster, engines screaming. The Krathix officers realized what was happening and panicked. They fired everything they had, but the Prometheus Rising's forward shields held. The ship was a spear of metal and fury, aimed straight at their hearts. "Humans don't just fight," Minho said quietly to himself. "We win." The Prometheus Rising hit the Krathix flagship at full speed. The shields flared so bright they lit up the entire battlefield. The human ship's reinforced nose punched into the organic armor of the enemy vessel. Metal screamed. The flagship split in two, its insides exposed to space. Atmosphere rushed out. Krathix crew members died by the hundreds. The Prometheus Rising burst through the other side. The ship was damaged, scarred, bleeding atmosphere from a dozen breaches. But it was still flying. Still fighting. The remaining 4 Krathix ships stopped. Their commander was dead. Their flagship was destroyed. They had never encountered a species so willing to sacrifice themselves to win. They turned and fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed and vanishing. On the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, silence fell. Then someone laughed. Then everyone was laughing and crying and hugging each other. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But the victory celebration ended quickly when the casualty reports came in. 17 crew members were dead. 43 were wounded. The engineering deck was a disaster. 2 of the medical bays were destroyed. Dr. Junho worked through the night. His hands moved like machines, stitching wounds, setting bones, injecting medicines. He saved 20 of the wounded, but he lost 3 more on the operating table. Each death felt like a knife in his heart. Captain Minho visited the medical bay at 3 in the morning. Yunyo looked exhausted, his scrubs covered in blood. The two men stood together in silence. 17 dead, Minho said quietly. 17 people who trusted me. You saved 300, Junho replied. And we're about to save millions of Velnar. Those 17 knew the risks. They chose to be here. That doesn't make it easier. No, Junho agreed. It never does. Minho went to his quarters and pulled up the personnel files of the dead. He read each name, looked at each face, memorized each story. These people died under his command. He would carry them with him forever, but there was no time to mourn properly. They were in Velnar space now. The real battle hadn't started yet. The patrol fleet was just the beginning. Somewhere ahead on Velnar Prime, millions of people suffered in cages. Children cried for parents they would never see again. Minho stood and looked at himself in the mirror. His face was hard. His eyes were cold. War changed people. He could feel it changing him. But that was okay. The Velnar needed a warrior, not a philosopher. A transmission came through from Velnar Prime. It was Elder Talus. His glowing skin was dim and flickering, but his voice was full of hope. Human ship, he said. We heard what happened. We heard you defeated the Krathix patrol. Is it true? It's true, Minho replied. We're coming, Elder Talus. Hold on just a little longer. You are the fire we prayed for, Talus said, his voice breaking. Please hurry. They are taking more of our children every day. The transmission ended. Minho returned to the bridge. His crew was battered and tired, but they looked at him with determination. They had come too far to stop now. Set course for Velnar Prime, Minho ordered. Maximum speed. It's time to finish this. Velnar Prime appeared before them like a dying jewel. The planet had once been beautiful, with crystal cities that caught the sunlight and forests that glowed with bioluminescent trees. Now from orbit they could see the scars. Fires burned in the cities, great machines tore at the ground, and everywhere Krathix ships hung in the sky like black tumors. The bridge crew stared in horror. There were 6 massive harvest ships in orbit, each one trailing tractor beams down to the surface. Through those beams, small shapes were being pulled up, people, thousands of them, being taken from their homes and dragged into the bellies of the ships. How many? Minho asked quietly. Hana checked her sensors. Her voice shook when she answered. The harvest ships are taking approximately 5,000 Velnar per hour. They've been doing this for 3 months. Captain, they've taken over 2 million people already. The bridge fell silent. 2 million. The number was too big to understand. Too horrible to imagine. Somewhere down there, children were screaming for their parents. Families were being torn apart. An entire civilization was being destroyed. Dr. Junho spoke up from his medical station. Sir, I'm detecting biosigns on the surface. Concentrated areas. Possibly prison camps or slave pens. Show me, Minho said. The main screen displayed a map of the largest city. In the center was a massive complex surrounded by walls. The sensors showed life signs packed together like sardines. 10,000 Velnar in a space meant for hundreds. The temperature readings showed it was too hot. The air quality showed it was barely breathable. Hana looked at Minho. What's the plan, Captain? Minho studied the tactical situation. 6 harvest ships in orbit, dozens of fighter craft, ground installations with anti-aircraft weapons, and in high orbit, a command station where the Krathix controlled their entire operation. It was a fortress, and he had 1 damaged ship with 300 exhausted crew members. We do it in 3 phases, Minho said, his voice steady and clear. First, we destroy those harvest ships. We can't save the Velnar if they keep getting taken. Second, we drop ground forces to liberate the largest slave pen. Third, we take out that command station. If we cut off their coordination, the remaining Krathix will scatter. That's ambitious, Hana said carefully. That's necessary, Minho replied. He stood and addressed the entire crew through the ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do is dangerous. Some of us won't survive. But look at that planet. Look at what's happening to those people. We are their only hope. We are all that stands between them and extinction. So we're going to fight with everything we have. And we're going to win, because that's what humans do. Battle stations, the alarm sounded. The crew moved to their positions. Weapons charged, shields powered up. The Prometheus Rising dove toward the planet like a falling star. The Krathix detected them immediately. The harvest ships turned their weapons toward the human vessel. Fighters launched from their bays, swarming like angry insects. Energy weapons lit up the space between them. But the Prometheus Rising was ready. Hana had programmed targeting solutions for all 6 harvest ships. The plasma railguns fired in a precise sequence. The first harvest ship exploded before it could raise its shields. The second lost its main engine and began spinning out of control. The third tried to flee but was too slow. The Krathix fighters were more dangerous. They were fast and maneuverable, piloted by warriors with decades of experience. They stung the Prometheus Rising with 1,000 small cuts. Shield sections failed. Armor was scorched. But Aria, the ship's artificial intelligence, controlled the point defense lasers. Her aim was perfect. Her timing was flawless. Fighters exploded by the dozens. Suji worked miracles in the engine room. Every time a system failed, she rerouted power. Every time damage spread, she contained it. She pushed the engines beyond their design limits. Metal screamed in protest. Warning alarms filled the air. But the ship kept flying. 3 of the 6 harvest ships were destroyed. A 4th was disabled. But the last 2 were heavily armored flagships. Their shields held against the railguns. They maneuvered into position and fired their main weapons. The Prometheus Rising took direct hits. The ship shook so hard that crew members were thrown from their seats. Hull breaches on decks 4, 7, and 12, a damage control officer reported. We're losing atmosphere. Sealing emergency bulkheads. Minho made a decision. Hana used the missiles. All of them. Sir, those are our last missiles, Hana warned. I know. Fire them. 60 kinetic missiles launched from the Prometheus Rising. They were simply solid metal rods, but they moved at incredible speed. The 2 remaining harvest ships tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. The missiles punched through shields, through armor, through the organic hulls of the ships. Explosions rippled across their surfaces. Internal systems failed. Both ships began falling toward the planet. Harvest fleet destroyed, Hana reported. She was smiling despite the blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. The Velnar are safe. No more abductions. Good, Minho said. Now we get them out. Suji, bring us down. Hana, prepare the ground team. The Prometheus Rising descended through the atmosphere. The heat shields glowed red. The ship left a burning trail across the sky. Every Velnar on the planet looked up and saw it. Hope, which had been dead for so long, stirred in their hearts. Captain Minho led the ground team personally. 50 Marines in powered armor loaded into drop pods. Each Marine carried plasma rifles, grenades, and enough ammunition for a small war. Dr. Junho went with them, along with his medical team. They would need doctors on the ground. Suji volunteered too. She wasn't a soldier, but she could hack Krathix systems. You need me down there, she had insisted. Minho knew she was right. The drop pods launched from the Prometheus Rising like meteors. They fell through the sky, protected by heat shields and thrusters. The Krathix on the ground saw them coming. They prepared their defenses. Automated turrets powered up. Guards took position around the slave pen. The pods hit the ground hard. Doors blew open. The Marines poured out, weapons ready. They found themselves facing a nightmare. The Krathix guards were 3 meters tall, covered in black shells harder than steel. They had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Their mandibles dripped with venom. The battle was brutal and close. Plasma fire lit up the twilight. Krathix charged forward, trying to use their size and strength. But humans had fought bigger enemies before. The Marines worked in teams using tactics refined over centuries of warfare. When a Krathix charged, 3 Marines would focus fire on its joints where the armor was weakest. When it fell, they moved to the next target. Minho fought at the front. His armor's strength servos let him move faster than should be possible. He shot a charging Krathix in the face, then used his rifle as a club to crush the skull of another. Around him, his Marines fought with desperate courage. Some fell, some died. But they pushed forward, meter by bloody meter. Suji reached the main gate of the slave pen. It was sealed with Krathix biotechnology, locks that only opened to their genetic signatures. She plugged her portable computer into the system and began hacking. Behind her, Marines formed a defensive circle, holding off waves of Krathix guards. Come on, Suji muttered, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The Krathix code was complex, designed by a civilization thousands of years old. But Suji was smarter. She found the back door, the weakness, the fatal flaw. Got it. The gates opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Inside, 10,000 Velnar people stared in shock and fear. They had been prisoners for so long they had forgotten what freedom looked like. Then they saw the human soldiers, fighting and dying to protect them. "Go!" Minho shouted in translated Velnar. "Run, we'll hold them off." The Velnar ran. They poured through the gates in a flood of glowing bodies. Some helped the elderly. Some carried children. They ran toward the city, toward safety, toward freedom. The humans bought them every second with blood and bullets. When the last Velnar was through, Minho ordered the retreat. The Marines fell back in good order, covering each other. They left 32 dead behind, but 10,000 Velnar were free. Above them, the Prometheus Rising turned its weapons toward the command station in high orbit. Hana's fingers moved across her console. She had one shot at this. The targeting computer locked on. Every weapon the ship had left fired at once. The command station's shields held for exactly 3 seconds. Then they collapsed. The structure broke apart, pieces of it burning as they fell toward the planet. The Krathik's chain of command was shattered. The remaining enemy forces, leaderless and confused, began to retreat. Captain Minho stood in the ruins of the battlefield, surrounded by his exhausted Marines. He looked up at the sky where the Prometheus Rising flew. Around him, Velnar people emerged from hiding. They looked at the humans with wonder and gratitude. Children touched the armor of the Marines, amazed that such fierce warriors had come to save them. Elder Talus walked forward slowly. His skin glowed brighter than it had in months. He reached out and touched Minho's armored hand. "You came," Talus said simply. "You actually came." Minho removed his helmet. His face was scarred and dirty and tired, but he smiled. "We heard your cry," he said. "We had to answer." The days after the battle were busy and hard. The Prometheus Rising remained in orbit, its weapons ready in case more Krathiks came. But none did. The word spread fast through the Dominion that humanity had arrived and they were not to be trifled with. The insects learned to fear the species that came from the small blue planet. On the surface of Velnar Prime, the work of healing began. Dr. Junho and his medical team set up temporary hospitals in the freed cities. They worked alongside Velnar healers, learning from each other. The Velnar had medical technology humans had never seen, devices that could regrow damaged organs and heal genetic damage. But they had no experience with trauma, with the psychological wounds that slavery leaves behind. Junho taught them about treating shock, about dealing with nightmares, about helping people find themselves again after terrible experiences. He worked 18-hour days. His hands shook from exhaustion. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But every time he saved a life, every time he saw a Velnar child smile again, he found the strength to keep going. One morning, a Velnar mother brought her daughter to him. The child had been separated from her parents for 2 months. She hadn't spoken since they found her. She just stared at nothing, lost in her own dark world. Junho spent hours with her, gentle and patient. He showed her pictures. He sang soft songs, and finally she whispered one word. "Mama," the mother cried. Junho cried. Sometimes the victories were small, but they were still victories. Engineer Suji Kang worked on restoring power to the cities. The Krathiks had damaged the infrastructure badly. Power plants were offline. Water treatment facilities were destroyed. Communication networks were shattered. Suji and her team went from city to city, fixing what they could and teaching the Velnar how to repair what they couldn't. The Velnar were quick learners. They had brilliant minds, capable of understanding complex systems. Working together, humans and Velnar began rebuilding. Lights came back on in darkened homes. Clean water flowed through pipes again. Children played in parks that had been battlefields just days before. Suji found that she liked working with the Velnar. They were patient and thoughtful, never rushing, always considering every angle. They reminded her why she became an engineer in the first place. To build things, to make life better, to fix what was broken. Lieutenant Hana Shin coordinated the security situation. There were still small groups of Krathiks scattered across the planet. Too few to be dangerous, but enough to cause trouble. She organized patrols of human Marines and Velnar volunteers who wanted to protect their world. She taught them basic tactics, how to work together, how to spot threats. The Velnar were not natural fighters, but they were learning. They understood now that sometimes peace must be defended with strength, that kindness does not mean weakness, that mercy has limits. Captain Minho spent his time with Elder Talus and the other Velnar leaders. They met in the Grand Archive, which had been damaged but still stood. Together they discussed the future. The Velnar wanted to join the galactic community properly, not as victims but as active members. They wanted to learn to defend themselves. They never wanted to be helpless again. "We would like to establish a formal alliance with Earth," Elder Talus said during one meeting. His skin glowed with determination. "We have much to offer. Our medical knowledge, our scientific understanding, our cultural wisdom, and Earth has shown us what we lacked. Courage, the will to fight for what is right. Together we could be stronger than either of us alone." Minho transmitted the proposal to Fleet Admiral Doyen back on Earth. The response came back within hours. "Alliance approved. Welcome to the family." But Minho knew their work on Velnar Prime was almost done. The Prometheus Rising was needed elsewhere. He had received 3 more distress calls in the past week. Other species, other worlds crying for help. The galaxy was big and full of suffering. One ship couldn't save everyone. He shared his thoughts with Talus one evening. They stood on a balcony overlooking the main city. The crystal towers were being rebuilt. The floating gardens were being replanted. Life was returning. "We have to leave soon," Minho said quietly. "Others need us." Talus nodded. His old eyes were wise and sad. "We understand. You are warriors. Your path leads you to many battles. But know this, Captain Minho Choi. You will always have a home here. The Velnar people will never forget what you did for us." "We lost 57 people saving this world," Minho said. 57 good men and women who will never go home." "Was it worth it?" Talus put a glowing hand on Minho's shoulder. "Look at the city, Captain. Look at the children playing. Look at the families reunited. Look at the hope in their eyes. Those 57 people saved 2 million lives. They stopped a genocide. They showed the galaxy that evil can be defeated. Yes, Captain, it was worth it. Their names will be remembered in our songs for 10,000 years." On the day the Prometheus Rising prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. The entire population of the main city gathered in the central square. Millions of Velnar, their skin glowing in the evening light. The human crew stood before them, uncomfortable with so much attention. Elder Talus stepped forward. In his hands he held a crystal, clear as water but burning with internal light. "This is the flame of Velnar," he said, his voice amplified so everyone could hear. "It has burned in our grand archive for 5,000 years. It has never gone out. It represents hope, the belief that light will always triumph over darkness. We give it to you now, Captain Minho Choi. You brought fire to our darkness. May this flame guide you in all your journeys." Minho accepted the crystal. It was warm in his hands and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. He didn't know what to say. Words felt too small for this moment. "Thank you," he managed finally. "We will treasure this always." The Velnar began to sing. It was a harmony unlike anything the humans had ever heard. Millions of voices joined together, creating music that seemed to come from the planet itself. It was beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. Some of the Marines cried openly. Later, on the Prometheus Rising, Minho placed the flame of Velnar on the bridge in a special case where everyone could see it. It glowed softly, casting gentle light across the consoles. It would stay there forever, a reminder of why they fought, a reminder of what they had saved. The crew gathered for a memorial service for their fallen. All 57 names were read aloud. Each name echoed through the ship. Each name was a person, a story, a life cut short. Hana read many of them, her voice steady despite her tears. Hunyo read others. Suji read the names of her engineers who died in the engine room, keeping the ship running so others could live. Captain Minho spoke last. "These people were heroes," he said. "Not because they wore uniforms or carried weapons, but because when they heard someone crying for help, they answered. They could have stayed home. They could have stayed safe, but they chose to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. That is what makes a hero. That is what makes a human." He paused and looked at the faces around him. Tired faces, scared faces, but brave faces. "We're going to receive more distress calls. The galaxy is big and full of people who need help. Some of you might want to leave, might want to go back to Earth. I'll understand. No shame, no judgment, nobody moved. Not one person." Hana stood up. "Captain, we knew what we were signing up for. We're with you, all the way, however far that takes us." The others cheered. Minho felt his throat tighten with emotion. These were his people, his family. Together they would face whatever came next. Word of what happened at Velnar Prime spread across the galaxy faster than light. The story grew with each telling. How one human ship defeated an entire Krathix occupation force. How humans fought with a courage that bordered on madness. How they saved millions of Velnar without asking for anything in return. Other species began to take notice. Earth was no longer just a small planet on the edge of nowhere. Earth was a place where warriors were born. A place where people still believed in things like honor and duty and sacrifice. A place that answered cries for help. 3 other species sent formal requests to the United Terran Coalition. They wanted human help with their own problems. Fleet Admiral Doyen approved the construction of 5 more ships like the Prometheus Rising. Earth was building a fleet. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect, to serve, to answer the cries that others ignored. On Velnar Prime, a young artist named Kalen painted a mural on the wall of a rebuilt school. It showed the Prometheus Rising descending from the sky, wreathed in flames like a falling star. Around it, Velnar people looked up with hope in their eyes. At the bottom, in both Velnar script and English, were written simple words. When we cried, they came. Children would pass that mural every day. They would remember. They would tell their own children. And the legend would grow. The legend of humanity. The species that heard a cry for help and sent a ship of legends and flames. The Prometheus Rising jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, Velnar Prime grew smaller. Ahead of them, somewhere in the vast darkness of space, someone else was crying. Someone else needed help. And humanity would answer. Because that's what humans did. In the captain's chair, Minho looked at the flame of Velnar glowing on his bridge. He thought about the lives saved. The lives lost.